Welcome back to Athletes Unplugged. I'm your host, Aquil Jackson, and today joining the show is my friend Mike Sweetney. You may remember him from his time at Georgetown under the tutelage of the late, great John Thompson. And some of you may remember him being the 9th overall pick in the 2003 NBA draft, alongside guys like LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and so on. But aside from talking about basketball, we're going to dive into the mental health and some of the struggles that he dealt with while he played the game that both of us can relate to. So with that being said, Mike, thanks for joining us, man, and thank you for spending some time with us.
Nah, DQ, I appreciate you having me on, man. Just been watching you, man. See you doing your thing, man. So for you to have me on, man, I'm glad to be part of this, man. So I'm excited.
I appreciate you taking the time because I really think mental health is a big part of, you've seen the last couple of years of how, you know, more athletes have been outspoken about some of the struggles they personally dealt with. You know, people like Simone Biles, you know, one of the top gymnasts in the world, Paul George a few years ago in the bubble, you know, some NFL guys like Calvin Ridley and Lane Johnson, some guys have been really outspoken about their mental health. But before we dive into all of that, I want to go back to where it all started with you. The first time you ever picked up a basketball, and who introduced you to the game of basketball?
Yeah, so I started playing basketball at the age of 9, and believe it or not, I hated it. You know what I'm saying? My father introduced me to the game, and he played, a little bit of high school ball and played in Maryland, and so he, wanted me to start playing hoops. He actually saw me shooting around in the backyard. He's like, no, I think you should be able to, try this. I was like, nah, I didn't want to. I just wanted to play at recess with my friends. So he put me in a structured system, at Oxon Hill Boys and Girls Club. And, I didn't want to do it. I used to lie and say I didn't have practice and all types of
Right.
And he was like, nah, we're going to do this. You're going to go. And believe it or not, within a month, I just started loving it because my first coach, actually, Daryl Moore, probably one of the greatest human beings you want to meet. And I guess he made me kind of obviously fall in love and get more comfortable with the game of basketball because he was just a great person. So I think that helped. If I would have had a different type of coach, I don't know what way it took me, but having him as my first coach really helped me just love it and make it you made it fun for me.
Yeah. So it was like an extended family member, but you're doing something you love to do. No, I completely understand that. So I would imagine you were probably a big kid, right? Like what position did you start off playing? Were you a center? Were you a point guard? Like what was that like? Because I'm sure you weren't 6'8" at that point, right?
Yeah. No, so I wasn't one of the tallest kids. I was wide. I was always had the size to me. I was kind of wide, but I was average height for a kid that age. And they definitely put me down in the post, and I think that's one of the things that probably benefited me later on in my career. I was always like that undersized person at my position, so I kind of learned at a young age how to use my body to get my shots off, get rebounds, and things like that. So
I see.
It kind of little things, and I look back at wow, that could really benefit me because me being a 6'8" power forward when I was playing in the NBA. Guys are 6'11", 7 feet I had to go against, but I knew how to move them around because of my body. So
yeah, that's interesting because I'm thinking about. So my first love, I don't know if you know, was basketball. Yep. If you would have told me growing up I was going to play 11 years as a professional athlete, I would not have chosen football. It was basketball. Like I loved it. I slept with a basketball. Like that was my first love. But I do remember growing up and playing. And well, I do remember coming here for the first time, the DMV area, and going to a high school game. And I had to remind myself, Mike, that I was at a high school basketball game because everybody was like, it was like legit size. Like it was a guy playing center, 6'8", 6'9", a point guard, 6'3". Yeah. Like these were college heights and they were playing at a college level, something that I had never seen before growing up in Florida. Back in Florida, football was religion. Here, basketball is religion as well as football. Mm-hmm. But so let's speed up to okay. So I
want to say something real quick. I'm gonna piggyback on something you said. You probably don't remember this, but when you played in my charity game.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you brought it up.
So you was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, man, you like really love food. And I remember you coming to the bench and you telling me that you was like, yo, this is like my first love. I was like, you was like, you was pumped to be out there, man. So I believe it when you said that because like I remember, I don't know if you remember. I remember that conversation.
I remember.
It's like, yo, this is my first love, man.
Oh, so what I don't think you remember. I do remember that, by the way. But I remember wifey when we talked or whatever. He was like, all right, you doing a charity basketball game? I'm like, all right, cool. Because I don't know if you knew, but I was going to camp maybe in another 2 weeks. So I was in the best shape of my life. But we hooped every day. Part of my training was hooping. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go out here. I'm gonna drop 25, 30. right? In my mind, I'm like, this gonna be an easy game. Everybody go kind of take it easy. I'm gonna get something to brag about.
Yeah.
But man, when I got there, bro, I realized I'm watching, I'm looking, I'm like, hold on, he played. Was I the only civilian, bro? It seemed like everybody else was either had played professional and just played past high school. Let's say that.
Everybody there was professional overseas or ex-NBA players. So you was the only football player.
I got set up. Yo, when I tell you, I had to guard Phil Goss. And Phil, that's my man. Yep. And I'm thinking, like, all right, let me, kind of keep up with the pace. I ran up and down, bro. When I tell you I was gassed, I had never, at that moment, I realized, I'm like, oh shit, like, this is a different type of conditioning. These guys are in different shape. But like, that was, man, I ended up, that's another, I got humble. Let's say that. I got humble. I thought I could hoop, but y'all put me in my place, man. So I'm sure you had a great AAU career. You're probably traveling, doing things like that. What was that like for back then, coming up in the kind of basketball circuit?
Yeah, so I started off playing AAU with one team. I started off playing with them, and so what happened was I wasn't seeing the floor at all. Like, I wasn't seeing the floor at all. And then Coach Trevor Brown, he coached at National Christian Academy. He came to me and he was like, hey, look, come play with my team. Yes, it's a year younger. Because I was at that weird age where I have a late birthday where I can play a year younger. Right. If I'm 12, I can play with 12 and under guys and not play, because I was playing 13 and under. But come play with me, because at that time my confidence was shot. I ain't know. I was. He's like, man, like, I see it in you. He brought me down to his team. We went to a tournament in Florida, and I turned it out. And that's when I knew, like, all right, this is what's up. Okay. So, like, I was a little bit different because that was the only time I really played. I only played AAU maybe a couple of times, years.
Okay.
I really committed to Georgetown after my freshman year in high school.
So I heard about that. I was like, wait a minute. I also heard you were like, maybe freshman, sophomore year, you were around like 6'3", 6'4", and then you hit this massive growth spurt. Yeah. Was that after you hit the growth? Were you committing to Georgetown after you hit this growth spurt?
No, so I was 6'4" in my freshman year in high school, and then that summer I blossomed to 6'8". And that beginning of that school year, my sophomore year, is when I committed to Georgetown, and I never played AAU again after that. They was like, look, we don't want you playing no A, because I wasn't ranked high. I wasn't no top 100 player. I wasn't none of that.
So are you serious?
Yeah, they was like, look, because like Big John kind of just, I was in the backyard. He's like, look, there's this kid.
Wait a minute. I never knew that, Mike. I'm thinking you were this top 5.
None of those schools recruited me.
You kidding, dude?
Yeah, yes, sir. I had like mid-majors a little bit towards the end of my career, but yeah.
Do you think it was because you committed so early?
No, I mean, schools are still trying to get me, because once you commit, you ain't signed, so they still try, right. But it was more so. I think, obviously, especially now, I didn't play AAU, so only people who saw me was during the high school season. And the summer, nobody saw me, so I wasn't on those camps and getting rankings and AAU everybody being seen. So that's why I wasn't no highly ranked. But Georgetown knew that. It was like, look, nah, committed to us. You ain't got to play no AAU no more. We'll take everything.
That's wow. That goes to show you the level of competition in this area. You weren't highly ranked, like mid majors, and you were the 9th pick of the NBA draft among some of the greatest players to probably ever pick up a basketball. So let's go there. So, I couldn't help but when I started reading about your story, and I'm glad you've been open about it, some of the struggles you dealt with from a mental health standpoint, I couldn't help but think about the highs that I had when I was drafted. I'm around my close family and friends. I get to share that moment with them, because obviously you put in the work, but you have a lot of people along the way to help you get over that hump. So if you could, Mike, walk me through. So for us, we have a rookie symposium where in football, they tell us about, the trappings, the girls, the nightclubs. They have people come up and talk about some of the things they got involved with that we should avoid, right? So it's a full onslaught of just information for 3 days. Tell me what happened, if you could, in your own words. You're at the highest of your high, and you get, dealt some devastating news that pretty much kind of shook your world up. If you could speak on that, if you could.
Yeah. So actually, I was what you were saying. I was called rookie transition program. We was pretty much the same exact thing, but just different phrases. So I was that. And we can have our phones like in the mornings or something like that. But then once we in that session, they look no cell phones, none of that. Like, you can't be on it, can't be texting or taking calls. But I had my phone in my pocket and it kept like vibrating. So hey, what's going on? Like everybody knew I can't have my phone. What's going on? So I looked, I had like 20 missed calls from my brother. So I'm like, man, all right, something ain't right. So I told him, I said, look, man, my brother called me 20 times. He know I can't have my phone. Like, it got to be an emergency. They was like, all right, you got a minute to take this call, see what's going on. So I called him. He's crying hysterically. He told me like, yo, like daddy's gone. I'm like, what? I had literally just talked to my pops that morning. So talked to him that morning, and that evening he was, early afternoon, he was gone. So within like a 3-hour span, he was gone. I'm like, wow. And it was tough. I was like, man, all right. So I went home and so I went back to my apartment in New York, and where my girlfriend, but wife now, was at the time, and she consoled me because she really just experienced that same situation I did. But her father, she kind of expected her father, but her father had passed, I think, 1.5 years before mine. So she was kind of understanding on what I was going through. So she was took me through it and took me back home to Maryland, and we had the funeral. And so they told me, they was like, hey, take some time off. And I'm like, nah, man, like, basketball's an outlet. You already know as an athlete, like, once you get on the field or that court, that's your couple hours of just to disconnect from the world and just, whether it's hitting somebody, dunking on some, whatever it may be. Right. Kind of just let it go a little bit. And I was like, no, I want to use that.
Yeah. And that was the culture. And that was a culture back then of, okay, your outlet, your grieving period, your mourning process is to go out and perform the job you're supposed to perform. But a lot of people that's never been a professional athlete, that's never played at the collegiate level, at a high level, understand just the amount of pressure that it is on an individual to reach those expectations for himself, let alone for the family and friends, expecting him to play at a high level and be this household name. So let me ask you, during that process, I know you said you decided to come back. The team said, hey, you know what, take some time. You didn't. I would have done the same thing, come back, try to play it through, see how things, kind of progress. Did the team provide any added assistance in terms of, hey, this guy probably needs someone to talk to? Oh, can you tell me what was the culture like in the NBA and particularly in your current situation during that time?
Yeah, so I'll just say this. So like one thing, so mental health wasn't talked about in 2003 what it is now. Now everybody talking about it's comfortable. There's assistance. So back then it was like kind of like, oh, it was more so like, hey, checking in. You all right? Anything? Wasn't like, hey, we have this counselor, we have this program, or this person outside to talk to. It was kind of none. It was just like, hey, how's it going? How's your family? And kind of keep it moving type of situation. And what was probably the hardest thing for me was I got drafted to one of the most toxic situations.
Yeah,
so the Knicks at point, man, we had, the sexual harassment suits going on, GM owners wasn't getting along, coaches fighting along each other, players, like it was a zoo. Man. So I'm 19 years old and I'm just throwing the middle. So like I'm chopped liver. Nobody care about me. So it was like, you can't, fit in when you can. So it was a toxic situation, man. So on top of grieving my pops, and then just, I got to a point I just hated going to practice and games, man, because I tried to use basketball as an outlet, but like it became like kind of personal with me, like a weird personal situation, because like everything I did, like when I first went to training camp, man, I dominated. I just knew I was going to be a starter.
Right.
And and they pulled me to the office before the first game. Was like, I'm thinking they're going to tell me, they're like, all right, great news, I'm the starter, right?
Right.
Like,
That's what.
You're not going to dress. So I'm like, you're not going to play. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'm not going to get the minutes. I'm like, nah, you're going to be in a suit. Coach don't like playing rookies no matter what they do.
So wait. Hold on. I gotta hold on, wait. You were 9th pick of the draft for the Knicks. You're supposed to play. Like that. No, the way things, was there anything like what was the outside for? What happened? Like
so now,
you were dominating.
So now that I'm older, I understand the business. So at that time, we had the highest payroll in the NBA. Like I think at that time it was 100 million, which is at that point it was like crazy. Yeah, that was anybody else maybe like 70 at the highest. So it was like astronomical. So we had 4 people in my position making like 10 and above. So so the owner's like, look, man, he making coming out making 1 million, 2 whatever it was. Look, I want my money on the floor. I don't care how good this dude is. He wanted his money on the floor. Right. And as you see, as that's why it was like really hard for the next few years, because it was all about whoever's making the most money needs to be on the floor. Even if the guy's older, don't have it no more, you know, that's the situation I was in. No matter what I did, you know, it was whatever. So I would get minutes here and there, and as soon as I would have moments where I would like showcase that what I could be, they immediately like pull me out.
Wow. I can see that.
Going through that, man, it just took its toll, man. I just fell out of love with the game at that point. It's just like, wow, like something that I used to have, you know, now I'm older, I understand it's a business, but I didn't understand it at 19 years old. I didn't have no OGs on the team schooling me, telling me, hey, this game, just stay patient, you know, do this, do that. Right. It was so toxic. Everybody was trying to find their way, and they fighting amongst each other. Like I said, I didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? That guy to kind of show me the ropes and like, look, just stay patient, try to, you know, just keep fighting through it, working out. I didn't have it.
Right. You were 19. You were a kid. Yeah. And thrusted into a situation where you just have been dealt the biggest obstacle you won't have to overcome, the loss of your father, who was there through every practice and games, and you had that support system, and now you're being thrusted into as you call it, just a situation pretty much with no control. Did you realize this shift emotionally, that, you know what, this is something that I love, and now it's become more of a burden than actually, you know, waking up in the morning and being excited to go to practice? Did you notice? And I don't know this, I'm not a clinician, I'm not claiming to be, I'm not a doctor, but I'm trying to learn more about it myself, because I have a story to share with you in a minute. Did you understand at that moment? I know it's early on. Did you understand like what it was doing to you, or do you remember your mindset during that time? Or it had to me, looking now, hindsight is 50-50, but looking into it, it's like, man, you probably don't know the emotional toll it's taking on you while you're in that fire and going through that at that moment. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, it's spot on. It's 100%. At the time, like, you know, I knew something wasn't right, because like I said, the love of the game that I used to have, like, you know, high school, you know, growing up, you know, that was my punishment. The way my parents said, nah, you can't go outside and play basketball. And I would be livid. Like, now you know, so,
same here, same.
Yeah. So, like, that was like my punishment growing up. And then it got to a point where I didn't even want to go to practices, man. Like, I was just like, man, like going here, I'm sitting there thinking of stuff. What can I say? You know what I'm saying? Not to go, or try to fake an injury. Stuff was crossing my mind. I'm like, wow.
Right. And let me, so I got to admit, so when you agreed to come on the show, I actually did some research myself, and I heard I think you were on the Mayim Bialik show, and I think you talked about during that time, the insurance of the NBA, you know, during that time didn't cover, or I may be, you know, jumping the gun a little bit, but the NBA, if I'm not mistaken, didn't cover you seeking outside treatment for a therapist or anything like that. Is that right?
Yeah. So when I was playing, insurance, you know,
that's big, man, because that is, you know, obviously everyone looks at professional athletes, you have all this money, this, that, and the other, but if you don't have the resources, part of the PA, in my opinion, the union's responsibility is making sure they're taking care of a 19-year-old or 18-year-old, because during that time you could leave out of high school, right? And, you know, you have to have these things. I know times are changing now, but it's just mind blowing to know that the NBA, and I'm not trying to like call the NBA out. I think they do a wonderful job of being proactive about social issues, but that's mind blowing to know that you had to come out and pay out of pocket to seek help for something that, you know, being in that environment is such a stressful environment that a lot of people aren't privy to.
No, I agree. So like now, you know, it's, you know, even I think a lot of insurance companies do put mental health in their, you know, plans that they take care of it. But at that time when I was playing, it was, it wasn't incorporated. So you got to pay out of pocket. So I don't think the teams even really cared about mental health at that point. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things. It was actually frowned upon. Like, you was soft or weak if you probably say those type of things, or deemed, like I'll use Met at World Peace, for example. People thought he was crazy. I had many conversations with that dude. He far from it. You know, he has his things he probably battled, you know, personally, but it seemed that he was crazy. So it was like a weird way.
It's a weird space to be in. Weird space to be viewed. So like, you're already being viewed of being a professional athlete, and you probably had to deal with being a high draft pick and not playing, and have to deal with that pressure on top of everything else. So let me go to a place where if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to touch on it. I read someplace you were still playing with the Knicks and you were in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And, this was a dark time for you. And thank God you're here to talk about it because you've become an advocate for mental health. I've read someplace you've gone to homeless shelters, drug abuse centers to get your story out, to tell people, hey, it can affect us all. And you're a walking symbol of, life after being in that dark place and that you continue to work on. So if you could, can you walk me through that time in Cleveland where you made a decision that could have ended your life?
Yeah, so I remember we were in Cleveland on the road, and like I said, I wasn't getting minutes. I was tired. It was just like I had enough. And I remember just being in my room, just crying hysterically. I had the shades darkened and everything, and my intention, it was a bottle of pills I had, and I took multiple of them, and hoping that it would, end it all. I was just that tired, man. I just didn't want to deal with it no more. Like, money didn't matter, none of that. Me being an NBA player didn't matter. I was just tired of just the basketball situation, just life in general. And and obviously, big guy, what I took, it made me feel horrible, but it obviously didn't affect me. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I know where my mind was, but I didn't really know what I was doing to whatever. So I was just like feeling horrible and had to get up the next morning and go to a shoot around for practice for the game. And remember telling them, hey, look, I feel like I got the flu symptoms. I told them something crazy. And they was like, all right, go ahead and sit out. And I'm just in disbelief, like I really just try to, take all these pills. I'm feeling horrible.
Right.
I know at that point, I don't know. Obviously, I just thank God that I'm still here. I don't know what I probably did to my system. I know I probably should have went to the doctor or hospital to get, checked out or something like that. But it was just, it was enough, and I just couldn't believe.
It just goes to show, like mental health is the greatest equalizer. Doesn't care about race, gender, professional athlete, non-professional athlete. It's just, it's blind. Mm-hmm. And what would you say to those people that say, you know what, that's selfish if you're thinking about taking your life, and which they know nothing about being in a dark place? Like, what would you say to those people to give them insight of, you know what, to become a professional athlete, to play for John Thompson and to be in that situation, you have to overcome a lot of different things thrown at you. So much so. And in my opinion, there's no professional player that's mentally weak because all the things you have to go through. What would you say to those people that say, you know what, taking your life to choosing to go that route is selfish and so forth? Like, what do you say to those people? Like, what insight can you give to those people?
It's interesting. That's a great thing you said. So I've had conversations with people at work, and when I've been at work, I come across people that try to commit suicide, and I've been in clients that literally try to commit suicide that night before, and I got to talk to them the next day. And the most common thing I hear is a blackout moment. A lot of times, most people don't even realize or kind of remember. Obviously, if they have marks or something that people tell them, they don't really remember what they actually did. So it's kind of one of those moments where you kind of you black out in a way. And so it's like, I get it both ways when people say, oh man, it's so selfish. But a lot of times people can't, when you're in mental health, you can't control it. Most of the time that stuff it's not controlled.
Right.
So
you're not being yourself. You're not yourself.
You're not yourself. So it's one of those things, I was like me. I had a moment and I realized afterwards, like, man, what did I just do? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I had a moment. So it happens. But I think when people that are actually, getting to that point, I think you definitely, I always tell people, like, man, you'd be surprised how much of a support system you have out there, and people that love you and care for you. Like, when you feeling a certain, you feeling that way, man, talk to somebody, man. Let somebody know how you feel, because believe it or not, they're gonna support you, and like more than and a lot of times too, it's gonna be confidential. Like, it's not gonna be out there that you're this, you're that. You know what I'm saying? You find somebody you trust in, and I'm not pushing everybody. Hey, don't run to it. I'm not running everybody to a therapist. Sometimes it can be your local pastor. Your local church, or one of your close friends or teacher, whatever it may be. Find that person that you trust to talk to, man. And I think for me, always knew that I had a great group of friends growing up, and my mom and my wife now, or girlfriend, the wife now. Like, I knew that these people actually care for me, and I knew that in the back of my mind. And so it was one of those things, like, And even to this day, I just had had a talk with Gennaro. I was
I was just with Gennaro.
And he still brings it. He brought it up, something that happened, 11 years, actually, wow, 17 years. Wow, 18 years ago. He's like, man, why didn't you tell us? You know what I'm saying? Like, look, we would have been up there for you. We would have been he was like mad at, he's still mad at me about it. Look, he's like, I'm still mad at you for you not telling us. I understand. I get it. But for me, now obviously I know what to do. But a lot of times people are scared to speak up on how they feel. And just him saying that to me, realized like, wow, I had a support system at that point. So most people have a great support system behind. Obviously, some people have broken families and relationships, but a lot of people do have a support system. And sometimes it can be, believe it or not, it can be strangers. Sometimes a stranger can be
there's no bias right there.
Yeah, so just try to use your resources and your support systems, whatever it may be, before, and I always tell people, a lot of times when you start feeling a certain way, try to catch it early. It's a snowball effect, so you know how sometimes, I'm gonna be all right, I'll get through this. The next thing you know, it becomes worse and worse.
Right.
Next thing, like I said, I started in 2003. I didn't snap out of it until 2011, 12, where I really started, and I can't really say that was when I started to turn the corner a little bit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So but it kept getting worse and worse. It's like, imagine 2003 if I would have went to my friends and say, look, this is how I'm feeling, man. Just come on up here and be with me, man.
Right. Or that's well said, man. That is great insight, even for me, and I'm sure everyone that's going to tune in. And with that, I can share the moment that I had. That's why I feel like I can sympathize with a lot of people going through some mental anguish in their life and struggling. There was two scenarios for me. There was one that happened in college, my freshman and sophomore year of college. I left Florida, going to Maryland. It was like a different world to me, growing up in this small little community where I was from. And so that was all cool and all. You deal with the stresses of that. But I had lost my grandfather and my grandmother. And I had grown up with them. They had raised me. And my grandfather was the alpha male in the household that I just had so much, just like, he never put his hands on me. He never cursed at me. You didn't want to disappoint him. You know what I mean? He was that guy. He was a bigger guy, but he always instilled in me that I was going to do bigger and better things. I was going to go to college. I was going to be married. He was talking to me like no one else in my family ever conversed like that. You know what I mean? And when I lost him, I was ready to shut it down, Mike. I was ready to shut it down in college. And luckily for me, because I was in this structured environment, I was still a kid and not a pro. A woman named Natasha Chris, who I still keep in contact with. I talked to her this morning. She was like my big auntie. She would grab my ass out of bed. You're not going to feel sorry for yourself. And I would legit go to her office just to cry. I would just cry in her office, and she never told a soul. It was just, if it wasn't for her, Mike, like, I don't know what direction I could have went down. Like, it still chalks me up to this day. And oh man, it was tough. And the other scenario was, I was actually a pro. And again, I was at the right place at the right time. I've been injured 2 years in a row. I was at a place called IMG Academy. And I was just feeling, I was not mentally in a good place. And then the lockout happened. So in my mind, I didn't think I was ever going to play again. So I had to draw a line in the sand and say, you know what? I looked at the bank account. I'm like, this ain't going to last me. Like, this ain't enough. Like, I need to change everything that I possibly was doing before and start from ground zero. And I met a guy named Trevor Moad. He called himself a mental conditioning coach. And he called me in his office. I talked to him and talked to him and talked to him. And that year, which led me to making a decision that I would have never made without talking to him. One of my buddies is from Sierra Leone. He built a school in Sierra Leone in West Africa. I made the trip there, changed my life 1,000%. And it's just, for me, I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and have people notice some things that were going on, because addiction and this stuff falls very close to my family. And knowing that, it was always on the back of my head. It's like, okay, I can't touch this particular thing because I'm afraid where it may lead me to. So that's where I can sympathize a lot, where, I was in a very dark place mentally, and by the grace of God, man, I had good people around me to see it before, as you mentioned, it snowballed and morphed into something that, God forbid, I didn't have to go, the route I have to go down. But let me ask you this:
I was want to say something real quick on what you said. That's a blessing in disguise, man. Because not many people have what you said. Like people catch it.
Mm-hmm.
People catch it. What you're going through before you even, catch it. I mean, I'm sure you probably had your feelings and inklings, but to have people say, "No, I got you," and snatch you up and say, "Look, I got you." Like that's.
And to wake up just thinking negative, and I was thinking about all the things that I didn't accomplish, all the things that I didn't do. I was mad at myself. I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror. Like that's a weird place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you the floor back, man. It's touchy to even talk about it. And partly why I created this platform to be able to talk about real issues, because this is therapy for me. Yeah. This is therapy for me, man. And I've been sharing this with a lot of people, and you know what? You're one of those people now because you understand, what that feels like.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Like I said, that's a blessing in disguise, man, to have that. And like for you, man, I commend you on just being, brave to say that, man, because people look at sometimes, athletes, whether you're played or retire, whatever it may be, they look at you as a superhuman where, oh, you got money in the bank, you ain't got no problems, life is great, like, whether you got $1 or $1 billion, you're still a human at the end of the day, and you still got to deal with real life issues.
Yeah, so you're right.
A lot of times, athletes get caught up in that, situation where now it's getting there where people are starting to understand. But I've heard even when Kyrie was going through this stuff, and Charles Barkley was like, I remember Charles Barkley made a comment like, "Man, Kyrie got $200 million in the bank. How is he need time? How is he depressed?" I'm like, man, it's so crazy because I remember reading how he had just lost like 2 people in his life that was close, like a grandmother. I don't know what it was. I don't want to misquote it, but I remember hearing that he lost like 2 people close to him in like a 2-month span. I'm like, man, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's
money
a lot.
Can't bring them people back. Money can't stop you and your wife having an argument. You gotta go to work, or you got a parent that's sick. Money can't fix everything. So like, you pay your bills, good, have a good lifestyle, but that real life stuff, it can't fix it. So I get it, man.
Right. Yeah. So you play 4 years in the NBA, and you play 2 years with the Knicks. You get traded to Chicago, and at that moment, I don't know this about after those 4 years. Did you decide to step away? Because if my memory serves me correctly, you took a trip to South America, or was it to play? Like, can you walk me through like that transition? You were with Chicago, then all of a sudden you end up in South America. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so like I walked away from I walked away from the game of basketball after my 4 years. I actually had a contract for the Phoenix Suns to continue playing.
Oh wow.
And I remember telling my agent everything I was going through. I said, look, and I really just got married. And I told my agent I need to step away from the game of basketball. And
wow. Was he supportive?
Huh?
Was he supportive?
Yeah, I mean, he understood. He was like, hey man, like when I told him, the extreme of my situation, I mean, he had to honor it. Maybe behind closed doors he was pissed, but at that point he had to honor it, try to help me find a therapist, stuff like that.
That's big of you to do that. And if I could interject for once, that's big of you to do that. And I just want to make sure I repeat this so everyone understands. You were 9th pick of the NBA draft, and you decided to step away after 4 years, after having a contract to stay in this space and live out a dream. You chose, it's best for me to step away. Most people, if you can't understand mental health and someone being in a mental just fog, that is it. To step away from your lifelong dream. You got the floor. I just had to reiterate that.
Thank you. But no, I think for my situation is, so when I stepped away and I said, look, right now I can't play, I'm gonna step away. And they found me a counselor. That counselor just wasn't, I'll just say this, it wasn't a good fit for me, that situation.
Right.
And kind of for me thinking I'm just going to step away from the game of basketball for a couple months or maybe a half a year and come back after the All-Star break. That was my mindset. Let me just get a counselor for a couple months, get myself together and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And once I had that situation with the counselor, it just kind of sent me in overdrive. So I went from thinking I'm going to come back to the other All-Star break to can't get back in the league. It was just that bad. I just didn't. I never really recovered from that decision of saying I'm gonna step away and thinking I'm gonna come back. And just took some time off, and it just got bad, and I ended up getting a job in Uruguay, South America, somewhere I never even thought about playing. They didn't even know it. To be honest with you, I'm not trying to sound like I'm dumb. I didn't even know Uruguay. I didn't even know.
I completely understand.
Yeah, when I got the call, I'm like, where you at? And it was just like, and I kind of told them before I made that decision, but I kind of told the team. For some reason, I trusted in them. I don't know why. I just opened up and said, this is what I'm going through. This is now we got somebody. And once I did that, met a guy, Juan, down there. We connected. It was one of those situations, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all day. We just connected. And it was interesting because we had different religious beliefs, but I found my connection with God back. I understood, okay, my NBA career is over. What's next? And repairing relationships that was broken. And I spent about a month or so down there, 2 months maybe. Just kind of had a different focus on life when I came back to the States. Also, I was able to disconnect from the States. Back in Maryland, everywhere I went, by me being a Georgetown guy, I always had my NBA career. What's going on? Why you not playing, man? You a bust. I just had so many different things. So everywhere I went, it was like no peace of mind that's after that house. So being in a foreign country where people, yes, they was happy to have me down there. I ain't hear that not one time. So I was able to kind of disconnect.
Recharge. Disconnect.
Deal with when I got back. So when I got back to the States, it was kind of like, hit the ground running in the way of recovery. You know what I'm saying? It still took time to recover, but I knew where to go from at that point.
Okay. So I get that. So there's a name that jumps out to me, and I had to look him up myself because I never had heard of him. A guy named Tamir Goodman. They called him the Jewish Jordan. And right before we started taping, I went on and found a video of him in high school. That was a bad boy on the court, man. And that's another story, how he kind of, his religious beliefs based on, the colleges and what have you, it just never kind of materialized, but he's doing really great things. I realized you guys have become friends throughout this process, right? He's from Maryland, and he asked you to go on a trip to Israel to work a basketball camp. And I'm trying to set it up. So like you're going to South America, and I feel like at this time, you're just open to, obviously you said the pressures of being back in the place where you grew up and you play college ball. Anytime anyone sees you, they want to remind you of the past. And you're trying to move forward. Was that part of that process of like, you know what, this is a great opportunity. It's with a friend I trust. I'm going to go help him out in the basketball camp in Israel. Yeah,
so it's funny. So I met Tamir. Actually, we met in senior year in high school. We was playing a couple classes together, like on a high school all-star game. And we kind of met, because we kind of met then, and we kind of just stayed in touch throughout the years. Even when I was depressed, it was like weird. Like I was going through it's funny because now that we talk, we was going through the same thing at the same time, but we never discussed it. He was like, hey, what's going on? How's life? You good? Same thing, you good. And once we realized we were both in a dark place at the same time, we was kind of just relying on each other and didn't really know it. And so we kind of hit it off that way. And so he moved from Cleveland. He was living in Cleveland for years. Now he lives in Israel now. And he moved out there, and he's like, hey, I'm going to basketball camp out here. Why don't you come on out here to Israel? So at the time, my wife was like, nah, you ain't going out there. I said, it was a danger. I said, it was a lot going on at that time. He's like, no, I'm in Jerusalem. I'm by the Western Wall. Like it's pretty safe out here, where we're at, which is cool. Yeah. So I already know what I'm going away. When I went out there, and that was a situation where, we went, as soon as we got off the plane, I went to the, Western Wall and things that I seen in the Bible.
Oh, wow.
That I saw in the Bible. I actually, it's funny because he's a Jewish.
I want to go to Israel.
It's one of those, I always tell people, it's one of those places, it's a life-changing place. It's like, things, the things you see in the Bible, you actually see it in real life.
And you're going to a place, it's hardcore, the yarmulkes, the whole deal. So, and you it's not like you're going to fit right in. Like you're 6'8" black man. I'm sure, like, if you tell me I gotta, I'm a little hesitant, but I know I'm in good hands.
Yeah. So like I went out there with him, and so he kind of just showed me the ropes or whatever, and that trip kind of turned my life around a little bit. That's how I started doing many things in the Jewish community. We were down there talking, and he was like, hey, you want to coach basketball? I had just moved to New York at that point. Okay. So you think about coaching basketball. I was like teaching that. He said, you should coach. I said, all right, cool. So he called up Coach Elliot Steinmetz from that Yeshiva University where I coach at now. He's like, Mike's saying my coach. And Elliot was like, all right, cool. No brainers. We had a conversation, hit it off. And next thing you know, that trip turned into me coaching at a Jewish college, me running Jewish after school programs, me, the company that I'm, I'm partnering in, New Horizon Council Center, the CEO is an Orthodox Jewish guy. And the opportunity from that trip came from that trip. It was weird, like how that trip that I was like hesitant on really just gave.
They embraced you, man.
It was my family where it's like, wow. So it's like, and I always tell people like my father, and it goes back to the values that my father taught me. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what religion you believe in. I don't care about none of that stuff. As long as you can respect me as a person, as a man, we can have a conversation. We can get along. And that's how I am right now. I'm like, man, look, I don't care what you believe in religion-wise, what your race is. As long as respecting and we can have conversations. And like I said, me and Tamir have way different religious beliefs. And we have conversations where I ask him questions, he asks me questions, but it's a respect thing. Like I respect him as a man, as how he takes care of me, whatever. So it's more so that's one of the things that me and him want to try to change in the world. Like, they'll just say, like, look, man, as humans, let's respect each other as human beings. But obviously we got to a point now in the world where it's just like, if I don't think your way, you don't think my way.
Right. It's
you're a horrible person. You're this. It's like, nah, we can have different views and still get along. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. I guess that was meant to happen, man. That was meant to happen. And now you're ingrained in the Jewish community and they've embraced you. It seems as though they embraced you and you piggybacked off of one move that led to another, and here you are. Let me ask you this. If I could go back for a moment, and when you were going through some of these things and your wife was always there, and what role did she play in that? Because listen, she, as you mentioned early on, she had gone through a loss a year prior than you had gone through it. So I'm imagining you guys are still together. You have what, three kids?
Yeah, 3 kids.
Three beautiful kids. Yeah. I'm sure she played a huge pivotal role into, all of this. Like, how important has she been in your progression and just journey through your mental health?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier, like, having that core group of people that really love you. So one thing, and it's so funny because we both were learning mental health together at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't, she didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand really what was going on. And and I think one thing she always tells me to this day, she was like, because we started off as really close friends in high school. Like we were like best friends in high school.
Yeah.
And one thing she always says to me to this day, like you were my best friend before all this other stuff. You're my best friend. Wow. And I know the person that you really are deep in. And I knew that's not who you were at that time. And I just want to support you and be there for you because I knew who my friend was. And she's like, it hurt me watching my friend go through that. And I just wanted to be there for you. And like, there'd be times where, man, I was, to be honest with you, I just wasn't a good person. Like I would purposely push her away from me because I didn't want nobody to like me. I didn't want nobody to love me. I didn't want nothing. I was like pushing her away. And days I'm being that way to her, she just comes give me a hug or kiss on me.
Wow.
I love you.
Wow.
And like, it was one of those things.
Wow.
Because, a lot of times, man, most women be like, man, Scar,
they out of here.
But she was like, nah, like, I love you. I'm going to be there for you. Like, and I think in the back of my mind, no matter what I try to do, I always knew like, wow, this woman loves me. Like, she got my best interest at my lowest point in life. She could
at the very least, you're going to seek this through for her because she is your biggest supporter and she's there with you day in and day out. So what was the moment when you realized when you were going through it, like, hey, you know what? Did you have a moment where he's like, you know what? I need to like speak out. I need to, well, not even speak out before we get to that point. Did you have a moment, aha moments like, okay, I identified there's something going on. Like you started making intentional steps to that road to recovery. Was there a moment? I don't know. Was there an event that happened or, birth of your kid, whatever it was, like, was there something to say, you know what? Okay, I'm in a tough place. I need to start slowly digging myself out of this hole I'm in.
I think, was at a point where, I was sleeping in parks and parking garages because I did it for months. Nobody knew that. For months, I was sleeping in parks and parking garages because I didn't want to, I felt like a failure. I'm like, man, everybody's, engaged, career on, and, I packed and left my house. I had my beautiful home, and then finding out that she was pregnant on my oldest son. At the point, I knew I had to try to change something because the father that I had growing up, I was nowhere shape, nowhere close to being that man my son would need. I didn't know how, I didn't know what was going to happen, but obviously with prayer and just having the right in my life and great group of friends and wife obviously. Kind of just got me in the right direction to get there. It took me years to get out of it, but I think, learning that, I had a child come into the world, I knew I had to make a change.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna sit here and say it happened then. No, it didn't. That's when it clicked in my head, like, okay, I got a child.
Right.
I got to make a change. And it didn't happen right then and there. I had to figure it out, as I'm learning. But I think that was one of the moments that changed, like, wow, okay. Because I knew, everything came back full circle, what my father was to me. I mean, to this day, I was like, man, obviously, I'm sure he ain't perfect, but my father was perfect. My father never missed a day, never missed a practice. Always a good support system, always loved me. Whatever he did, maybe he had stuff going on behind closed doors I didn't know about, but in my eyes, he was.
That's how I hope my son views me at that age. Like I'm his superhuman. I'm his hero. So he sounds like a great individual. Clearly, he is because you're doing. I think you're having more of an impact. You were here. Things happen for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that, and I think your purpose. You had a moment on the court, but I think your purpose is you're living it now, with helping others and speaking to young kids and just letting them know, hey, I was whom a lot of people desired to be, but yet I stepped away from the game to work on myself, and it's a true testament to you. And listen, you were the Trojan horse. You were out in front of this well before this kind of this like tidal wave of emotions. To create a more conducive environment to help athletes and be more receptive to not just the physical, but the mental side of the game. It's funny. I looked up some stats from the CDC. I had never done it before. And like I said, I've been into this like mental health, just positive energy. And it was a crazy stat that basically, that kind of alarmed me. People from the age of 10 to 34, the second leading cause of death is suicide.
Yep.
Like that is, there's a lot to unpack there, but when you talk to these kids, when you go out and talk to kids, like what's your general message? Because that to me is a big range of, that's a huge range, man. And for it to be suicide, that means a lot of external pressures of really, seeping through. And I think we should be far along than what we are from the mental health space.
So that's amazing. So you head on with those stats and break it down even more. The teenagers are the ones who are the highest. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where it's like, yes, that stat is right, but those when it comes to those teenagers, man, it's unbelievable stories I hear, man. Like the kids, like I've had kids tell me they want to commit suicide. They try to commit suicide because they wasn't fitting in on social media. One person, like, man, this person had more life. I know. I bought the same hoodie as this one kid, and he got way more likes than me. People don't like me. People don't love me. Like people,
really,
like social media, man, has really messed a lot of kids up. Where they think that's life. They want value from social media. If they don't get the attention, or it's cyberbullying, and it's so much these kids got to unplug from. It's actually sad. The stories I hear on a day-to-day basis, man, like. And it's crazy. So like I just try to tell them, like, look, man, it's one of those things I tell people, like, especially teenagers, like you're at an age now, man. Now I'm older, like this probably should be one of the funnest times of your life when you're in high school. Right.
Right.
You're not adult yet. I mean, obviously adulthood is still fun, don't get me wrong, but like no real pressure. Like have fun, man. Work hard, and obviously everything that you work hard for might not happen. Let's just be honest.
Right.
You might be working hard for a scholarship or to get certain grades, and it might not happen. I said we got to learn how do we deal with results? How do we deal with the results we don't get?
Right.
I'm not trying to sound harsh at all, but I say this to you: you're going to work hard for something, and it's not going to go your way. I hate to say it, it's a fact. And like, how are we going to deal?
That's life.
Are we going to keep pushing forward, or are we going to stop and we just going to like let our world just crash? Because one thing I learned, I could say 10 years of my life, I'm like, what just happened? Because the world kept going, life kept going.
Right.
Well, my situation, life kept going. So I tell kids now, we got to find a way to, when things go right, okay, let's pick out. So you have your moment, Let's pick ourselves and let's keep pushing forward.
Right.
Try to make the best of it. Okay, it didn't go my way now. Let me see if I can go another angle. Or you know what? It's okay. It's okay to say no. So like, no, the rejection is really. It's like I don't know how to fix it with kids these days. It's like, hey, you know,
it's a different breed now. It's like I think it's important for kids to fail and learn how to move on from failure. You know, and I think that's why sports is one of the biggest, you know, teachers in learning how to fail and coming back and learning how to fail. Not learning, you're failing and coming back. You know, being resilient. And so you mentioned something about the work you're doing now. You're working with you partner with a group. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what you're doing?
Yeah, so I partner with a group called New Horizon Counseling Center. So pretty much substance abuse centers, homeless shelters, and we deal with a lot of people that's, you know, low income, and just pretty much at the lowest point of their life. We try to find ways to help them get. If they don't have health insurance. People are homeless, so we help them find homes and help them get food stamps and just try to help them get their life, you know, back in order. And so for me, my purpose is with the company, I go around to all these centers and I kind of just share my journey and talk to people. And you know, with the programs, I'm the middle guy to the CEO. Like I let them know, like, hey, look, let's change this program. Let's change this program because, like, you know, what I learned, you know, obviously, when I tell them, say, look, you know, growing up in the African American community, I understand people. I understand these people that you're trying to service. Like the way we're going about it is probably not a good idea. Like because you know, before I got there, what they were doing, they would go like one time every 6 months.
You got to build a.
You got to gain people's trust. They want to see you every day. So once a week, I'm in certain centers, seeing them. I said, look,
wow, that's great.
You gotta gain that trust. So just for me, like you said, I think I found that was my purpose. And this is my purpose. And like for me, I get fulfillment out of doing this and getting a text message or email say, hey man, thank you for what you said. You know, changed my life. So I see a lot of, you know, brothers that look like me in there that are struggling. And you know, just to see them get that life turned around and start going in the right direction, man, for me it's a happy thing.
Yeah, if I can, you know, I'll say this now, I'll say this offline. If I could be of help or service in any capacity, man, feel free to reach out. That's something that I definitely want to, you know, get involved with, and especially if you're stamping it, you're approving it. Hell, I mean, you'll be able to recruit a ton of people, and I'm one of those people. I'm like, hey, however I can help in any capacity, I definitely want to help if I can. And it leads me to this point of, you know, I have a 3-year-old now, and you know, he's at that age now, Mike, where, you know, he just had a birthday, and anyone that comes in the house or any family member that he sees, he's talking about a present. Is that a present? Is that a present for me? Is that so? You know, it's in the lines of, you know what? This is the time we got to start teaching them. Like, you know, you can't have it. You can want everything, but we're not going to give you everything. You know, and so the holidays, we're actually planning with Alfred Street to adopt a family. To adopt some kids similar to his age, and we're collecting toys as we speak. He's got a ton of toys, and we're going to start that process with him so he can understand the art of giving. You know, when you give, you receive a lot more in return. So that's what we are with that, man. But I know you got a busy schedule, Mike, man.
I agree 1,000% with what you said, man. That's like spot on, because like my wife, we had that conversation about my kids, because like I said, sometimes they don't get real life and situations, and she's like, no, we gotta show them, because like I'm sitting there preaching this stuff to the world, but I'm like, man, my kids can be one of those, like you said, your kid can be that kid that as they get older, they don't understand it. It could be a shell shock. They can go down a bad path. So like you said, teach them early. So I agree, man. So I want to just piggyback on that, because that's very, very important for parents that are listening. Like, you know, you teach your kids, you know, at a young age, like you said, you can't have everything. Sometimes you got to work for it. Like, they are in life, like how good you got it. You know what I'm saying? So I agree 100%. I didn't want you to take that lightly, what you said, because that was very, very important.
Well, I appreciate that.
Issues at some point. So that's what's up.
I appreciate that. Is there anything that I missed that we didn't talk about that you want to share? Is there anything that comes to mind?
No, actually, you covered everything on the spot, man. I was gonna say I'm grateful and thankful that you had me on, man, to be part of this. You know what you've been doing. I mean, watching your work, you're doing good work, and like I said, keep pushing this message, man. It's important, you know, for just not only, you know, other athletes to hear, but just people in the world to hear this, man. To see, because you never know who's listening, who might be going through something. They might take something what we either one of us experienced like, wow, I was experienced what DQ went through, man. Like, this really, changed my mindset. Okay, he got through it. Okay, he did this. You just never know, man. So just you never know who's listening, man. So just keep pushing.
Right. Hey, man, those are great words coming from a great man. And again, I appreciate your time and your perspective. Again, if I could help with anything you're doing moving forward, feel free to reach out, man. Don't hesitate. Mike, I appreciate it, man. This has been great.
Thank you, brother, man. Take it easy. Blessings to the fam, man. To everybody.
All right. Same.
All right, brother.
All right, brother.